Hi, I'm Snigdha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we discuss the first official contact between India and the Taliban. We also discuss the mysterious viral fever in Uttar Pradesh, and we go over the Allahabad High Court's observation regarding cows. Beginning with the Taliban. Finally bringing an end to all the speculation regarding what India's strategy will be towards the Taliban, India and the Taliban made their first official communication on the 31st of August, just hours after the last of the American army left Afghanistan. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the Indian envoy to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, met Sher Mohammad Abbas Tanikzai, the head of Taliban's political office, at the Indian embassy in Doha on the request of the Taliban side. The discussion ranged from issues of security of Indians in Afghanistan to terrorism. So to discuss the significance of India's first contact with the Taliban, how that meeting went, and what it means for both India and the Taliban, Shubhajit Roy joined our podcast. So Shubhajit, first of all, if you can tell us, what is the significance of this first sort of contact between the Taliban and India, and also what finally led India to this decision?
Well, I think it was a fait accompli. Essentially, time had finally come for the Indian government to engage directly, openly, and officially with the Taliban. And because essentially Taliban is now controls Kabul, is the sole power in Afghanistan. So in this context, when you have a group which controls the country, which is in your neighborhood, as well as you have vital stakes there. You have Indians stranded there. There are Afghans who worked with India for several years, and there are Afghan nationals who want to visit India either for education or jobs or medical treatment and a host other issues. And of course, the most important is that the government didn't want a territory which facilitates a terror group to operate from their territory and which is directed towards India. So all these reasons made India finally establish contact directly, openly, and publicly, because otherwise one wouldn't have anyone to talk to in Kabul.
Right. So, can you tell us how this meeting went and what all was discussed?
Yes, so there was this meeting between Indian ambassador in Doha, in Qatar, whose name is Deepak Mittal, and he has been an old Afghanistan hand in the Ministry of External Affairs. He was Joint Secretary Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran, looking after these three countries in the MEA for 3 years, from 2017 to 2020. He went to Doha last year, and he knows the terrain quite well. So he was asked by the government in New Delhi to establish contact with the Taliban leadership in Doha, because as you know, Taliban has a mission there, has an embassy there, which was set up exactly to facilitate the peace process or the talks with the US and the international community. So Muhammad Abbas Tanikzai, who leads that office, he requested for the meeting according to MEA officials, and he went to the Indian embassy where the two, Deepak Mittal, the Indian ambassador, and Tanikzai, they met. Then the meeting, according to the information that we have, went off quite well. Essentially, the Indian ambassador, Deepak Mittal, he raised the issues of safety, security of Indians stranded in Afghanistan. Also, he raised the issue of the travel by Afghans who want to come to India. And of course, the issue of that there should be no terror group who should be allowed to operate from Afghanistan. So all these issues were raised by the Indian ambassador in his meeting with Tanikzai. And according to the Indian government, Tanikzai told the Indian ambassador that all these issues will be positively addressed. So that's how the meeting took place. Remember, Tanikzai in the recent days had made very positive statements towards India, and this was India's response to those statements, which was seen positively.
So, Shibujit, you recently reported on how, Stanik the Taliban leader, has said that India is very important for the subcontinent and that the Taliban wants to continue Afghanistan's cultural, economic, political, and trade ties with India like in the past. Can you talk more about this?
So Stanixai, you rightly pointed out, had made these positive statements towards India about establishing ties with India. This was part of a video that was released by the Taliban late on Saturday. It was a 46-minute video in which Stanixai spoke. And in that, he made these positive statements towards developing a relationship with India. Stanixai, if you remember, was passed out of Indian Military Academy in Dehradun back in the 80s. I think the year was 1982. He's referred to by his then batchmates as Sheru. But Stanixai has had a different political career within the Taliban leadership. He was also the deputy foreign minister in the previous Taliban regime between 96 to in those years. Then he also became the deputy health minister. He was moved from the foreign ministry to the health ministry. There are many multiple reasons about that, but this time he's being fielded by the Taliban as international spokesperson or an international diplomat. He's been talking to ambassadors of different countries. So he's appeared to be a foreign minister kind of a role, a diplomat kind of a role in the Taliban grouping.
Right. So, how will this direct relationship with India work in the interest of Taliban?
So Taliban, obviously this time, unlike in the past, they're looking at international legitimacy. And this is part of their process. They're reaching out to the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, also the Indians. And this is part of that exercise where they want international legitimacy, recognition for their grouping, and don't want to be seen as a rogue group as it was seen as in the past. Now, we'll have to see what Stanixai says and what Taliban does on the ground. Will they be same? Will they be different? So that behavior will really determine what India's response will be. So that's why Taliban is reaching out, this direct relationship. Also, you have to remember that Taliban also has a lot of factions, is not a monolith. So there are internal pressures, groups. So while Pakistan and Pakistan military holds the levers to the Taliban, has huge influence over the Taliban. But there are groupings which also don't want to be seen as a stooge of Pakistan military. So this could also be a way of messaging back to the generals in Rawalpindi or the politicians in Islamabad that they are not anyone's lackey. They're not anyone's second fiddle. So it could also be seen as a assertion of their own identity, authority over its international outreach and ties. So there could be multiple reasons. Also, you have to also remember that India worked over the last 2 decades. India spent almost about $3 billion in several projects in almost all the 34 provinces of Afghanistan. And they have benefited the local communities, whether they built a school or a hospital or a dam or a parliament building or a road. So all these have really benefited the local communities. So I guess there is a value of engagement with India as well, because India has been a reliable donor.
So, Shubhajit, since you mentioned Pakistan, I want to ask you, how will India maneuver and, strengthen this relationship with the Taliban, considering the strained relationship it has with Pakistan and the fact that Pakistan is very important for the Taliban and will continue to remain important in the future?
Right. So proof of it, of the pudding lies in eating. So essentially, if you really see, one has to see how Taliban demonstrates its behavior on the ground, whether it harms the Afghans who worked with India and the Indian embassy in the last 2 decades, and have they been harmed? Have they been hunted by the Taliban or harmed by the Taliban? So I think those are the things that will be the first markers which will really tell us what will be India's response, how will India manage and maneuver this relationship. Because Pakistan is ultimately very important for the Taliban. And already you see Pakistan's foreign ministry, statements, the foreign minister has already been holding forth on behalf of the Taliban. It's been asking people to engage with Taliban. The international community should engage with Taliban, help them economically. So I think those are the issues that one needs to look at. If Pakistan plays an outsized influence and it sees India's influence in Afghanistan as a negative one factor. All these years, it has always claimed that India has spies on the ground and India has not been helpful in its work. So, all these conspiracy theories, rumors, that has been the position of Pakistan. Now, we will have to see how that plays out. Also, as I pointed out earlier, this Taliban has its own mind, and Taliban 2.0 might be much more assertive than 1.0. And we will have to see that relationship between Pakistan army and the Taliban might be tested in the weeks and months to come.
Right. So, next, Shubhajit, if you can tell us, Prime Minister Modi, he has been speaking to world leaders regarding the Taliban situation. Recently, he spoke to Angela Merkel from Germany, and the latest exchange, like you reported, was with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. So, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so Prime Minister Modi has spoken to these two leaders, and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, he's spoken to his counterparts in the US, UK, Qatar, and several other countries, essentially exchanging notes on the unfolding situation in Afghanistan and how to deal with the situation. Also, some of this happened as India was holding the presidency of the UN Security Council. So, what India's position was and how it was in sync with, whether it was in sync with these partners, these relationships, was also obviously discussed. The thing is that these meetings essentially also were to evacuate Indians out of Afghanistan and Afghans out of Afghanistan. So some of this also helped in getting people out of the country. But now I think as the Taliban emerges as the sort of sole power, US has evacuated, has left Afghanistan, I think it's in India's interest to engage with all the partners, whether they're in region or near abroad or somewhere else, so that it can shape its policy based on realpolitik and pragmatism. And that is something, is a space everyone knows that's a fluid situation, and one will really go by what Taliban does on the ground. And that's why I think it's important to be engaged with the international community and then also shape one's behavior based on one's own national interest.
And now coming to Uttar Pradesh. At least 40 people, including 32 children in Uttar Pradesh's Firozabad, have died due to a mysterious dengue-like fever in the last 1 week. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath visited the government hospital in the town on Monday to review the progress of the treatment and the measures taken to prevent dengue. So to find out more about it, we were joined by Amil Bhatnagar, who has been reporting on the issue from Uttar Pradesh. So, Amil, can you begin by telling us, when did health authorities in Uttar Pradesh realize that this was an outbreak?
In the last 1 week, several children were getting down with this viral fever. Initially, the health authorities from CHCs and PHCs and hospitals were notified that cases of viral fever had been coming in. Most of the cases began after Rakhi, say in the last week or 8 days. While the initial symptoms were vomiting, diarrhea, and weakness, so everyone thought initially, the understanding of the doctors and medical authorities was that this is a viral fever. But as days progressed, the fever became fatal as some children began to die in hospitals, some died at homes. And in the last 2-3 days, the death toll has now reached 32 children in Firozabad. And besides children, 7 adults have also died. So what began as a viral fever, which is a rather broad term to signify this particular illness, but now the officials are claiming that this is a dengue-like fever, and UP medical authorities have admitted that there is a dengue outbreak in the region.
Right. So what do we know so far about this disease? And also, they suspect that it could be dengue. Why are they still not sure?
So the children that are being brought, fever is a common symptom throughout the cases. In some cases, it's vomiting as well, it's diarrhea as well. The platelet count in some cases have also gone down to dangerous levels. In fact, 3 children died in the pediatric section of the Firozabad Medical Hospital. Out of those 3 deaths, one child also had asthma, and another child platelets had fallen down considerably, which resulted in the fatality. The doubts regarding so far, the administration has not ascribed any other reason beyond dengue for this large outbreak, because yesterday itself there were 23 positive cases of dengue in the Firozabad Medical Hospital. In Mathura, for that matter, Mathura, which is close to Agra as well, there were 8 deaths, and in that, the second cause of illness was scrub typhus, which is a bacterial form of infection and not viral. So, given that information as well, while the general consensus among the officials is that it is dengue, the CM during his visit also said that we are conducting a probe on behalf of the medical authorities. An investigation is being launched. If at all there is another reason beyond that, but prima facie, they are attributing the case to dengue as the main cause.
So you already mentioned some of the areas, but what are the other areas of Uttar Pradesh that have been affected?
Primarily, this outbreak has been observed in West UP regions. The maximum cases and fatalities have come about in Firozabad, which is around 30 kilometers from Agra. There are rather negligible cases in Agra and Manpuri. There are some cases in Mathura as well. But primarily, this Western UP region is the main focus of concern, because the medical officials have been directed in this region, just even if, like for example, Agra, even if though there are less cases, the CMO teams are visiting villages, speaking to people. In fact, the CM himself has issued directions that if there is a case of fever, that case needs to be monitored and observed carefully. There needs to be a timely analysis, and in cases, and the blood samples should also be sent to Lucknow for further examination in order to localize those cases. So essentially, in this West UP region, any case of fever is being taken very seriously. So all of these regions are within 200 to 50 kilometers radius of Delhi.
Right. So, Amil, you visited these hospitals which are treating these children. Can you describe the conditions that you saw?
There is a huge amount of rush in these hospitals because, firstly, for the locals in Firozabad and nearby regions, they have not seen an illness like this. They have not witnessed these many cases. They have not heard of these many fatalities happen over the years. So for them, there is a sense of panic in these areas because, firstly, it involves small children, and the children are the vulnerable target in this. So you have very, very worried parents of 2, 3-year-old infants, toddlers, parents carrying them for their tests. They're waiting outside in huge numbers. Also because there is an issue of platelets. So blood tests are being carried out, blood banks have been set up. So there is an entire infrastructure is trying to respond to these large number of cases. So huge rushes at Firozabad Medical College, which is the largest facility for that area, for the nearby villages, apart from Agra Ascent Medical College. And a couple of families that I spoke to, the condition deteriorated between 2 to 3 days. So the worried families are wondering if it's going to worsen in the time or not. So there is a lot of apprehension. There is less understanding also on their part because everyone's thinking that either it's dengue. Some people are not understanding the actual cause of it as well, which is again a matter probed by medical authorities as well. So we are in the pediatric section of the medical hospital. There are 300 beds, out of which around 210 were occupied by last night. There are discharges also as well. There are a lot of children going back home after week as well. But a general sense of panic in the villages and areas because even if it's a slight fever, people are assuming the worst case scenario and are worried simply because 32 children have died in a span of 1 week.
And finally, Amil, if you can tell us more about how health authorities in Uttar Pradesh are responding to this crisis.
Well, after the CM visit, a number of instructions were issued to the medical departments, the local administration, sanitize, because dengue is primarily spread through contaminated and unclean areas. It's a vector-borne disease. So a lot of sanitization and cleanliness drives are being carried out in these cases. In Agra, the medical authorities are ensuring that if platelets need to be supplied to those areas because the demand for platelets has gone up. In some cases, the platelets are falling, so they need extra platelets. So the authorities are ensuring that as well. Blood banks are being set up. Extra staff is being called from Kannauj, Agra, and other nearby areas to make sure that there is a doctor on call for a maximum number of patients possible. The DM is making rounds every day. The CMO is also carrying out inspections, and the CM has also asked for a report on what led to these cases and deaths. So that in parallel is happening. authorities in Lucknow are also closely monitoring the situation from the center, and in order to ensure that these cases are limited, like the number of cases are hopefully come down in the coming days. So there is a large-scale mobilization of health workers, medical authorities in these regions to very first place identify cases of fever and try and give them first response treatment, because if the fever comes down in a few days, and if the symptoms abate in a matter of few days, then a crisis is averted.
And now coming to the Allahabad High Court. The Allahabad High Court on Wednesday said that the cow is a part and parcel of India's culture and should be declared as the national animal. The court made the observation while denying bail to one Javed, who was charged with offences under the Prevention of Cow Slaughter Act in Uttar Pradesh. Justice Shekhar Kumar Yadav, while heading a single bench, also said that the government should pass a bill in the parliament to give fundamental rights to cows. The court said, and I quote, "The work of cow protection is not only for one religious sect, but the cow is the culture of India, and the work of saving the culture is of every citizen living in the country, irrespective of the religion." Unquote. According to bar and bench, the court in its order also said, and I'm quoting again, "Jab गाय का कल्याण होगा तभी देश का कल्याण होगा," meaning only if the cow is revered, then the country will prosper. The court also remarked that India is the only country in the world where people of different religions live who may worship differently, but their thinking is the same for the country. Denying bail to Javed, the court also said that in such a situation where everyone takes a step forward to unite India and support its faith, then some people whose faith and belief are not at all in the interest of the country, they only weaken the country by talking like this. In view of the above circumstances, the court said that prima facie the offence was proved to be committed against the applicant. Further remarking that the accused was previously involved in similar acts, the court said that if the bail is granted, then it might disturb the harmony of the society at large. According to bar and bench, the court also remarked on the functioning of Gaushalas in Uttar Pradesh. It said that the government gets Gaushalas constructed, but the people who have to take care of the cow do not take care of the cows. Similarly, the private Gaushalas have become a mere sham today, in which people take donations from the public and help from the government in the name of cow promotion, but spend it for their own interest and do not care for the cow. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Snigdha Sharma, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. You can follow us and leave us feedback on Facebook or Twitter at Express Podcasts, or send us an email at podcasts@indianexpress.com. And if you like this show, please do subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts from so more people can find us. You can also look for us in the audio section in the top right corner of our website, indianexpress.com.